I don't know who needs to hear this, but you are not actually married to your book cover. Now, here's the thing. You're probably thinking, well, I know that, Janeen, because that would be weird and strange, and why would I don't get it. But sometimes, especially newer authors, can get really attached to the first cover of their book. They have a strong connection with it, or maybe they're nervous that they have to choose the most perfect cover for their first book because it's making a statement, and people get into their heads about, well, this is your first big mark on the world, and no one will remember, no one will ever forget that you had this particular book cover. And here's the thing. It used to be way back in 2009, 2010, when I was first going to conferences, it used to be that, yes, your first mark on the world, your first book cover really did kind of set the standard for what people judged you by. And that is still true today, sort of, depending on the kind of launch you have and depending on how much you actually promote it. But the world has gotten so busy and noisy and crazy. And there's so many books out there getting published every single day, every single hour, and every single minute that the thing is, people don't remember or notice things nearly as much as they used to, partly just because they're getting inundated with so much information every single day. Now, this can be really discouraging when it comes to standing out in the market, but conversely, it can be encouraging when your first book cover option for your book wasn't the one that you really wanted, maybe wasn't your best pick, didn't really stand out in the market. Maybe the cover designer moved on and you decided it was a series and they can't keep doing book covers. You can change the book cover and it's okay. And you still want to honor those early readers who maybe loved that first book cover and connected with it, but you also have full permission to go ahead and just redo that book cover and get something that is going to work for you now. Publishers have been changing the covers on books all the time. This is completely normal. That's why if you're looking to get all the books in a particular series or trilogy to all match, but the first book that you bought was in fact an older edition, you might be saying, why me? I didn't know it was going to be this hard to find matching covers because, of course, they don't make those covers anymore. So you have to go to secondhand bookshops, so you have to go on eBay, or you have to try to find other matching older edition book covers because the publishers have since changed the cover of that book 3, 4, 5 times. You see this with Lord of the Rings. You see this with the Chronicles of Narnia. You see this a lot of books where the publishers are always refreshing them and rebranding them to try to connect with new audiences. But here's the thing. Now that we know that you can absolutely change your book cover, and in fact, in many instances, you don't have a choice, how do you know when it is the right time to do it? Maybe if you're like me and you like to chase shiny objects and you like to look at those pre-made sales online, or you see someone else's book cover and go, man, that looks really cool. How do you know that that's right for you? Well, that's what I'm going to talk about in today's episode with some nice, friendly object lessons from my own book cover redesigns. And I am super excited to share this with you. So this is Janeen Ippolito. Let's chat. Welcome to the Author Culture Podcast, where I am all about helping ambitious, fantastic science fiction and fantasy authors just like you achieve your unique success sustainably in a chaotic publishing world. So if you're all about reaching your next level in a way that makes sense for you, you are in the right place. And real quick, if you haven't already, make sure that you do hit that subscribe button on YouTube. And elsewhere, if you listen to this on Substack, follow me on Substack or on Spotify. I think they have a subscribe option too. Just make sure you're following me and hit that notification bell if there is one so that you never miss an episode. And of course, I do have a fantastic inner circle of paid subscribers who get bi-weekly current events episodes where I give my unfiltered commentary on the latest current events, thoughts, all of those things. It's also a great way to show that you really believe in the dream of what we do at Author Culture and that you're really excited to support the podcast. Now, we're going to dive right into this wonderful, amazing object lesson with a couple of my own books. Now, the first one that I had to rebrand was World Building from the Inside Out. And just a quick aside, if you are listening to this on a podcast app that doesn't have the visual component to it, you might want to hop over to YouTube or to my Substack sometime so that you can actually get the full experience of seeing the book covers. I will try to describe them a bit, but you know, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and I'm not talking that much in this episode. All right, the first book that I had to rebrand is World Building from the Inside Out. Now, the book that I'm holding up right now is the original cover, and it's the original workbook cover. It has this beautiful, nice, dark blue background. We have this heart here with all of these kind of grids coming away from it, sort of architectural. We have this interesting sort of typography that was meant to evoke maybe architectural sketches or something very technical as well. And this was the original cover of the book. And the idea behind it was to try to stand out in the market. At that time, there were almost no world building books in the market, especially those focused on writers. But also the idea was we're talking about the inside out because this is a cultural world building book. So it was kind of a clever play on that. And I love it. It's beautiful. It is distinctive. But here's the thing. It just wasn't enough on brand to really connect with people. It did sell. And in fact, all of the covers that I'm showing you here today are books that did sell and are profitable. So it's not always about your book not making a profit. Sometimes you just need to tweak the design because you want it to make more of a profit or connect more with the right audience. But in this case, it was too clever. It was a bit too quirky, and it just wasn't clear enough what made this book distinct, which really showed up even more when people were saying, it's so weird. It only talks about culture. Who cares? Where's the rest of it? And I'm like, I need to clarify. So we changed to this book, which is the book I'm holding up now, is a white cover, and it has the same grid pattern, but it's of a world with a gear shape around it. So we have that idea of constructing a world here. And we have world building from the inside out at the top. And at the bottom here, we have a quick reference guide for creating science fiction and fantasy cultures. So I listened to my reviews that complained that it wasn't really talking about all world building, just cultures. And I'm like, you know what? I am going to clarify that it's only about cultures. So this has been my second edition. It has sold even better. It still sells well. It connects well. It makes sense. And in this particular genre, this is one of the standards for it. World building books don't really have excitingly explosive covers all the time. It's still a fairly niche part of the author help and author resource world. However, I am in the process of getting this redone again, just because I would like to see it tightened up. The designer who did work on it is now working on other projects. So I'm working with a new designer. I want to kind of get this white chunk out of here. I want to see if I can do something different with it so that it really looks fresh and interesting. After all, this book has been out for 10 years now, so I think it's ready for a new edition. And in the future, I am going to be adding additional content to it as well. So here's the thing. If you want to plan out featuring a new book cover, it's a great time to get a new book cover at the same time that you're shifting around the content. People's brains are kind of cued to expect new cover, refreshed content, makes sense. The visual is matching the content being refreshed, all of that. It kind of connects together in their brain. So if you're choosing to rebrand your book externally, it can be a fun time to actually refresh it on the inside as well. Also, I don't know if you can pick this up. There is some beeping going on outside there. Hopefully it's not too loud. My microphone isn't picking up, but if it is, I'm sorry. Okay, so I went from this old version, which is the dark blue version, to this version, just to try to clarify the actual audience for the book and make it clear that it is about story, world building. It is a textbook. It's not a story about how to create architectural hearts. Now, second one I rebranded was the Iron Fire Legacy series. And I'm actually going to grab from behind me the latest version of that. This is in fact my bookshelf. All right, so the trick with the Ironfire Legacy series is that it's steampunk. And steampunk is a small genre and it doesn't really have a strong set of aesthetics except gears. That is steampunk. It is Victorian, it is gears, it is those kind of things. Other than that, the book covers don't have a lot of distinctives. You really hope to see gears. And sometimes you'll see parasols, you'll see top hats or those kind of things. You'll see things that are very experimental, things that look like mad science, that kind of stuff. So when I was putting out the Ironfire Legacy series, I knew a lot of my inspiration had come both from steampunk and aesthetic, but also from the Honor Harrington series. So that was kind of a sci-fi feel, which sci-fi does pair well with steampunk. So my first option was this cover. And it actually, you can see we also used a different title then that has since been changed. And the title work was kind of planned on to be sort of a Wild West feel. It has a character's face on the cover because I was thinking sort of Honor Harrington vibes or pulpy, space opera vibes. And then kind of this green smoke around here to kind of evoke mad science. And we did have some gears in the background, but they weren't easy to see. And then we kind of had some dragons down here because there's dragon shifting. It looked interesting. It sold. People were like, wow, I don't even know what this book is, but I think it's fun. And if you're listening to this and going, hey, I liked that book cover, I am so excited that you did. That's fantastic. However, it didn't really show off the distinctives of the book. You really couldn't see if the main character was a dragon shifter. You really couldn't get a vibe of adventure as much. You weren't sure whether it was science fiction or steampunk, when it really was more steampunk with the adventure and dragon versus airship battles and those kind of things. So this book got refreshed to this version of the book. So now I'm holding up the second edition of this book. As you can see, it has a lot more of the green smoke around there. The main character is featured in the center and she has wings. You can kind of see that she is some kind of dragon shifter. We have gears up in the corner that are very easy to see. It looks a lot more adventurous, and this also sold well. Again, with steampunk, the gears on the book cover really do matter. And I was pretty happy with this one as well. It did well. I thought it looked a little bit young. Some people kind of looked at it and thought it was YA because of the figures pose and everything. And this is definitely not a YA book. It's definitely 16 plus. It keeps the content PG-13, but it's wartime, bad things happen. People get in messy situations. It's hard. And so, I definitely say, like, if you've seen harder edge Marvel movies, you're fine, but it's not really a super sweet YA thing. And also, it didn't really capture the adventure feeling of it. It looks more like a soul-searching journey kind of book. Again, if you're listening or watch this and going, hey, I love that cover, that is fantastic. This is not a bad cover. It's a great cover. But as I kept moving forward, I really wanted to find book covers that really captured the essence of the book and would make for instant sales with that and really be eye-catching. And while this is a great cover, it still wasn't hitting the mark the way I wanted it to. So I'm holding up right now the first cover, and then we have the second cover. And then I went for a Christian Benchulin cover. If you know Christian, he does amazing cinematic covers. One of his main things that he works on is that cinematic style, that very dramatic style. And he is just doing all the things now. He's awesome. Love you, Christian. So he did this redesign, and then we redid the title to Outlaw of Smoke. Definitely has much more of a metallic gear feel at the bottom there. And we still have the character on the front, but now we have her in a very dramatic action pose. She has fire coming out of her hands. She's very clearly in a corset and has some kind of flowy Victorian top on. There's still dragon wings. We have a character next to her who's meant to be Shan's Windkeeper, and she's meant to be Kessia Ironfire. And he's got a rifle and he's got some kind of mechanical arm, and there's some kind of danger happening. It's very cinematic. Looks like a movie poster. It really connects with the action elements in the book, and it also connects with how these two characters have to work together to solve the problems in the book, even though they're at odds with each other, and even though dragons and humans really don't get along at the start of this book, as far as both of these characters are aware. This one absolutely also sells books. Loved it. It really attracts people across the room to look at the book. And it's just fun to look at. It's very pretty. I have it in matte, so you can kind of pet it. And I like to pet covers. That sounds weird. Anyway, so I am holding this up now. This is first cover, and then the second cover. And then the third cover here. And one of the reasons I really just kept tweaking this is that because this genre is so niche, I really wanted to make sure the cover really connected, because as soon as people got into these books, they read all the way through them. The writing carried the story carried the story. So I needed to take away anything that a confusing cover would do to interfere with that process of readers getting into the books and enjoying them. And now I'm sticking with these covers because I love them. But again, if you love my first two covers, your opinions are valid. And thank you so much for reading my books. Now, on to the final one. These are covers that I actually just redid last year around this time. And this is for my quirky weird series. So if you're someone who's like, that's great, Janeen, that you did a book cover redesign that helped you get more on target. That's great that you did a redesign because people weren't understanding the content. You had to clarify. But what if your book is just weird and you don't know where it fits? I get you. That is my life sometimes. And that is this book, which originally is called Hearts Ablaze. And this is based on a short story that I wrote as a funny gag thing and emailed to friends. Like, that was all it was. It wasn't meant to be anything profound. I heard about the idea of alien abduction romance, and I'm like, well, that is so silly. That is so ridiculous. I'm going to make fun of that, and I'm just going to send it to some friends, and they're going to laugh about it. I'm going to write this short scene. I'm going to email it to them. I'm going to be done. And they emailed back saying, where's the next chapter? And I'm like, I'm not writing a chapter. I just did this fun, silly thing. But then I wrote another thing. And then I wrote another thing. And then I kind of was like, well, how would you redeem a guy who does that? How would you actually redeem someone who did an alien abduction thing? And not the whole thing of, oh, I didn't know, he really had to abduct me because his whole culture needed me. No, we're not going to give the cultural thing. We're going to actually say it was still wrong, even if his culture's in trouble. And how would you actually walk through those steps? So I finished it off. And then I'm like, you know what? I have this silly little story. I'm just going to toss it out there and see what happens. So in this case, I didn't invest in an expensive cover. And actually my first cover cost nothing because I didn't even know where this was going to go. I just wanted to get it out there and say, hey, let's see what happens. So if you look at this first cover that I'm holding up now, I made this on Canva. And this was not now Canva. This was like 2016, 2017 Canva, but you could still make decent-ish covers. And now, of course, you can make all the shinies because they keep updating it with AI. So the original title was Hearts Ablaze, a short romantic satire. I just found some commercially available stock footage here. I have this couple in front of a flaming heart. I mean, for what it was, it did a fine job. Now, the problem is it kind of looks like what it was mocking, which did kind of confuse people. They would look at it and go, wow, this looks like sort of a slight, steamy, romantic novelette. And it's not. It's making fun of those things. It's like super sweet. But again, I wasn't trying to spend any money on this. And guess what? I didn't spend any money on this. I made it on Canva. It did a fine job. The expectations were very low. But then I was in a cover design group and the designer was like, hey, give me ideas for custom pre-mades, which is where you give them the designer an idea and they run with it. And if you like it, you pay for it. So I said, let's just do this and see what happens. Because people were actually liking the story, which I'm glad they were enjoying it, but it was just a silly gag story. So I wasn't really expecting to go anywhere. So when I did that at the custom pre-made group, I ended up with these guys. Yes, there was also a second one. All I'm going to say is I had a very persistent reader who said, but what happens after they get reconciled and engaged? You know who you are. You may not watch this podcast or listen to it, but you know who you are. I dedicated the book to you and you are persistent. Anyway, so her interpretation was more of a sci-fi feeling because at the time I kind of was playing more sci-fi with it. So she did kind of a Starfield background. You had this female character looking kind of offended in the main foreground, close up of her face. You had this male character in a silhouette doing some kind of proposal. And she sort of retitled it with the custom pre-made My Alien Boyfriend. And I mean, it worked. It sold more books, which was really cool. It's always fun when you like redo things and the book sales go up. So that's a win. And if you're interested in me detailing what specific things you can do to make sure that your next rebrand actually produces more sales, please leave a comment somewhere and I will take that into consideration and maybe make another video about cover design and how you choose to redo your book covers to increase sales. But I had this and I had this book cover as well. So I'm holding up both book covers here in my hands and it worked well. It was cute. It was fun. But then the thing is, they were kind of this little weird thing in a corner. And I'm like, you know what? I would like to see if these things can earn their keep. It's really interesting how much people have really connected with this little duology thing we have going on here. So what if I could connect this to my urban fantasy series? I don't really have anything else in sci-fi. So a sci-fi satire romance isn't really going to connect with my overall brand. I don't have to connect it to my overall brand, but what if I could do that, but still keep the story? Could I do that? It's kind of an interesting challenge I had for myself. And you know me and challenges, sometimes I just take them up and then I run with them. So I took these two book covers and I took the books down and I said, you know what? I want to really dive into this more and I want to take this a little more seriously. I don't want it to just be a silly little, very shallowly written gag thing. If you've enjoyed these, that's fantastic. I'm not saying that the enjoyment was shallow. I wrote them to be funny. So if you laughed at them, that's great. But I wanted to just see if I could really pull them into my urban fantasy universe more in a natural way so that then they'd get more readership, more people would connect with them. So I did that. That took some time. And hang on, let me see if I can find, here we go. Here are the new ones, because I realized the versions I found were actually the proof copies. So they have this Amazon gray thing on. It doesn't look great. So I found these other ones on the shelf instead. So I did this and I said, you know what if instead of them being a fire elemental or some kind of alien thing, what if I made them dragons? And I talked to one of my friends and she's like, you should absolutely make them dragons. Making them dragons makes them even better. Makes so much sense. Just make them dragons. So I made them dragons. And so I spent some time and I made the books a bit longer. If you can see, they're twice as thick. I wove them into my urban fantasy story world, which already had a bunch of fans in it. I did my best to keep that core story I love, but I expanded it more, a little more pathos, because a little more pathos can go a long way to creating entertainment and humor. You really need the contrast of that pathos and those little bits of hardship to really bring out the fun, sharpness, sweetness, all of that of the humor and of the action. You need that good balance there. It's kind of like you don't want it to be too salty or too sweet. So I did that, and then I got new covers for them, and I got these on a cover design discount for both books in the trilogy, which actually I thought it was going to be a trilogy, and it's actually duology, and that's okay. So I retitled them as well, and now they are Accidentally a Dragon Shifter. So I'm holding this up to the video or the video camera, cell phone camera. I'm showing my age there. Okay, so we have Accidentally a Dragon Shifter here, and it has a main character folding her arms looking kind of miffed, and we have the male main character behind her looking kind of miffed too. They both look a little bit silly. They don't look as silly as they are in the books because actually a little bit of quirk goes a long way. When people are judging book covers and you might say, oh, these two characters are ridiculously silly, I have to make them look silly on the page. It doesn't take much. Silliness on a book cover is kind of like salt. The tiniest bit will make readers go, oh, haha, I get it. Too much, they think you're writing middle grade or something. So anyway, we have these two characters here, and they're idiots to lovers. That is their story verse. We have the cover, Accidentally on Dragon Trial, and then this one is Accidentally a Dragon Shifter, and it's fun, and it's playful, and it's very strongly urban fantasy. Cozy. I did do some research on this covers. My other option was getting these in typography because that was also popular, but the thing with typography covers right now and cartoonish, quirky covers right now is there's kind of a tug of war between contemporary and fantasy over who owns the cozy, cartoony covers. And in addition, there's a fight between the clean and steamy of who owns the cozy, cartoony covers, because it used to be cozy and cartoony meant it was sweet. And then steamy decided they wanted discreet covers. And hey, why can't they have super sexy times happening, but also have the cutesy cover? And now it's been kind of a cover genre mess out there. I wanted to avoid that, so I just stuck with having photo nipped figures, and I'm completely okay with this. So that's what we ended up doing with this book series. And they've done even better. The read through is fantastic. Watch my Kindle unlimited page reads and stuff and see people just going through the books. I love it. They're fun. And I'm glad I did the work on that, even though originally this particular series wasn't even supposed to be a series. I just literally was sitting on the couch one night at, I think it was at my mother-in-law's. We were on there for the holidays, my husband and I. And I was there watching a show. I had my laptop out and I was just writing this ridiculous scene. And from that ridiculous scene back in like 2013 came this book. I'm holding up the original Hearts Ablaze, and then this book, Accidentally a Dragon Shifter. So in that case, sometimes you can take something that's really silly that you didn't really think about doing a fancy cover for, and then you end up wanting to do more with it because it ends up catching on. So you have to just keep tweaking the covers. That's legit too. For every project that you are very intentional about and it's like, yes, I am going to be so precise. This is my serious book thing. There's always that project that starts off as something silly and then ends up blowing up and you go, okay, I'm glad people liked this. Let's run with it. Why not? So thank you so much for joining me on this wonderful trip down memory lane with all of these awesome books. It was a hoot. And if you have any further questions about doing book relaunches, choosing new cover design, how to choose the right cover design, finding right cover designers, etc., please do shout those things out in a comment below. And I would love to be inspired to do a future episode and share it with you. This is Janeen Ippolito of Author Culture. Go forth and be awesome.